Hey guys, Mr. Backerberg here. In this video, we're going to look at graphing using Slope-Intercept Form. When we're graphing things out in Slope-Intercept Form, we want to focus on the slope and the y-intercept, just like we've been doing. So remember, Slope-Intercept Form looks like y equals mx plus b. The m value is your slope, and your b value helps you determine where your y-intercept is. So if we look at the equation, y equals 2/3 x minus 3. The slope of this equation is 2/3, and because the b value on the end is -3, that means that the y-intercept for the graph would be at the point 0, -3. Now we can use these two sets of information to help us draw out a picture of this line. Because we know the y-intercept is at the point 0, -3, the y-intercept is the point where your line crosses through the y-axis. So what I could do is I could take this 0, -3 point and I could plot this out on my grid over here. So 0, -3 means don't go anywhere left or right, but we're going down 3 spaces to that dot. Now your slope, remember the slope is the rise over the run. So what we can do from here, from this y-intercept that we just plotted out, we need 2 points to make a line. So we're going to use this rise and this run to help us find a second point. So from where the y-intercept is located, we're going to rise 2 spaces, because that's what's on top of the fraction, and we're going to run 3 spaces. So that means we're going to move 2 spaces up and 3 spaces to the right. And then I'm going to plot another point right there. Now we only need 2 points to form a straight line, so I'm going to take these 2 points and connect them with a nice straight line. Now we have to remember that our line does extend in both directions forever and ever, so I'm going to put arrows on the ends of my line to show that it would keep going. It wouldn't just stop at those endpoints. As we look at our next equation, we've got y equals -4x plus 2. So the first thing we want to identify is our slope. So the slope is the number in front of the x, so that's -4. For the b value on the end, that's 2. So that means the y-intercept of our graph is happening at the point 0, 2. So the very first thing we're going to do is plot out that y-intercept. So I'm going to go up 2 spaces from the origin and put my dot there. Now for the slope, remember your slope is rise over run, but -4 itself isn't a fraction. So that can be difficult to think about it as rise over run if we're not seeing a fraction. But remember, we can take any number that we want and turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1. So now we can see that we have a rise of -4 and a run of 1. So a rise of -4 means from this y-intercept that we just plotted out, -4 means we're going to go down 4 spaces, and then a run of 1 means that we're going to go to the right 1 space. There's our 2 dots that we need in order to draw out our nice straight line. And then just like we did on the last one, I'm going to put arrows on the ends of my line to show that my line does extend in both directions forever and ever. As we take a look at our next example, we're going to graph out the equation y equals -5/4 x minus 3. The first thing we want to identify is the slope, so we look directly in front of the x, and we've got a -5/4 slope. Then we want to look at the b value on the end. The b value is -3, and remember the b value tells you about your y-intercept, so the y-intercept is going to happen at the point 0, -3. So if I plot that out, then from the origin, I have to go down 3 spaces to put that dot. Now, with our slope being negative, that means that our line needs to be pointing down. So from this point, to get a -5/4 slope, I would go down 5 spaces and to the right 4. But I can't really do that because that would take me off of my grid. So I'm going to draw out a quick picture up here. We need to have a negative sloped line, which means we've got a line that's pointing down. We've got a point that's centrally located right now, and in order to get this negative slope, there's 2 ways to do it. One way is going down and to the right. The other way to end up with a negative slope is we could also go up and to the left. So with this -5/4 slope, because I can't really go down and to the right because that would take me off of my grid, I'm going to go up and to the left. So we still have rise over run. So I want to go up 5 spaces, and I want to go to the left 4 spaces to plot out my second point for my line. Then when I draw in that line, we will get that downward pointing line like we want in order to show that we have that negative slope. I am going to put arrows on the ends of my line to show that it does extend forever and ever. So again, to reiterate this, to get this negative slope, you can either go down and to the right, or you can go up and to the left. And both of those will give you this downward sloping line. In this example, we're going to graph out the equation y equals 3x. So the first thing we're going to identify is the slope. So we look directly in front of the x, and we've got a slope of 3. Then we want to look at the b value. The b value is the number being added or subtracted on the end of your equation, and here we don't have a number being added or subtracted on the end. So the b value is really 0. And when your b value is 0, that means that your y-intercept is at the point 0, 0, which is the origin where your two axes meet up. Now, the slope is 3, and typically we think of slope as being a fraction rise over run. So we want to remember that we can take any number and turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1. So we've got a positive slope of 3 over 1, so the rise is 3. So from that y-intercept that we just plotted out, we want to go up 3 spaces, then the run is 1, so I want to go over 1 space. Then I can take my line and connect those points that I just plotted out, and I'm going to put arrows on the end to show that my line does extend forever and ever. Another example to take a look at in here, we're going to graph out the equation y equals -4. The very first thing we've been identifying is the slope, and we've always said that the slope is the number in front of the x. Well, in this equation, there is no x. So what's actually happening in here is this line is going to have a slope of 0. As far as the b value goes, that's going to be our number that we've got right here. That's going to be the -4. And that means that our line is going to cross through the point 0, -4. So I'm going to plot that out first. So from the origin, I'm going to go down 4 spaces and put that dot. When you've got a line with a slope of 0, we want to remember that that's a flat horizontal line through that specific y value. So it's going through the y value of -4. And we are still going to put arrows on the ends of our line to show that it does extend in both directions forever and ever. In our last example here, we're going to look at the equation 4y plus 6x equals 12. Now, we've been graphing out equations that are in slope-intercept form, which means that we've got a y equals equation. And that's not quite what we have right now. So there's a little bit of work that we need to do in order to get this in that y equals form before we're going to go through and graph it out. So the first thing I want to do is look at this 6x here, and I want to move that over to the other side of my equation. So I'm going to subtract 6x on both sides. So on the left-hand side, the plus 6x and the minus 6x cancel each other out. So we have 4y equals -6x plus 12. I still want my y to be alone, so I'm going to get rid of that 4 that's attached to it. Right now we've got 4 times y, so I'm going to go ahead and divide everything in this equation by the 4. So on the left-hand side, the times 4 and divided by 4 cancel each other out, leaving us with y equals. Now, as we look at the fraction -6 over 4, -6 does not divide nicely by 4, but this is a reducible fraction. Each one of these numbers are divisible by 2, so we would get the fraction -3/2 x. Now, in the end, 12 does divide nicely by 4. That ends up being +3. Now we can go through and find the slope. Remember, the slope is the number in front of your x, so that's -3/2. As far as the b value goes, we've got a b value of 3, so that means the y-intercept of our line is happening at the point 0, 3. So I'm going to go up 3 spaces from the origin and plot out my first dot. The slope is -3/2, so I'm going to go down 3 spaces and to the right 2 spaces to put my next dot. Then I'm going to go through and draw in my nice straight line connecting those points. And lastly, I'm going to put the arrows on the end of my line to show that this line does extend in both directions forever and ever. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.